How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And today I am getting a chance to talk to Christian Slade. How are you, sir?
Doing awesome, doing good. It's good to talk to you. Yeah,
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I finished reading your book, and I love using the word in quotation marks reading because when
right.
people open this up, they'll see what I mean. But I finished reading the book last week, and I wanted to do a video this week right before interviewing you and to talk about it. And I just read it on Tuesday, recorded my video on Wednesday, and it came out on Thursday.
hmm
I just absolutely love this book. And if you don't know what I'm talking about Corgi. They just released, and by they I mean Top Shelf Productions, just released a complete collection of all five of these books in this one big, beautiful book. So
Yeah,
I'm here talking to the creator. He is both the writer, the artist, and this is his brainchild.
yeah. That's my baby. Yeah, it took a long time. Yeah, 1999, 2000 was when I first kind of came up with the idea,
Uh huh.
and book one didn't. I self-published it at first, and then Top Shelf published that first book
Hmm.
in 2007. And that was also the year I became a dad, so the production just kind of slowed. So it took a good while to get to the other four books because it was a 5 book series, um, and the whole idea, what you're holding there in your hands, Omar, was kind of the vision to see it all, even though the books are separate as they were
Hmm.
published. Always wanted to see it all under one big volume like that. So I'm thrilled to see it in a new format like that, where it's all together.
Hmm.
The individual books kind of, I think, maybe got lost on the shelf, but
This one
maybe,
stands out.
yeah, in its completion, hopefully, it gets a little bit more eyeballs on it.
So I have to ask the obvious question. Let's get this out of the way, Christian.
Yeah,
Are
yeah,
you a fan of corgis
yeah.
or
Safe to
dogs?
say,
Yeah,
safe
it's
to
safe to
say.
say. Did you have corgis growing up? Did you or do you
Not
have
growing
corgis?
up, actually, and this is a big question I get all the time is, why corgis? Why corgis? And
Mhm.
part of this is me not really having a dog growing up, but of course loving not just dogs but all animals. If I had it my way, I'd have black bears, and I'd have, like, I'd
Wow.
have, I'd have mountain
That
lions
escalated
and
quickly. You went from corgi to black bear.
porcupines. I'd run the, if I could, have them, but
Okay.
obviously that's not practical at all. I could barely handle what I have
I
now, but
I
it.
don't know where you are. I live in Kentucky.
Oh
Let's
well, you
just say
could.
there's
You,
a lot of people here that keep weird pets.
oh
So
yeah,
it's
you could
not
totally
that
get away
crazy.
with it. Oh yeah, as long as you're a zone for agriculture, you should be good. uh,
It's not as
yeah, no,
crazy.
I think so. What happened was my wife and I were dating in college, and they had a corgi, the family, and so I remember the first time I saw one of these dogs. I actually felt sorry for it and thought it was a handicapped dog. I'd never seen one like that with the shorter legs, but the body and the head and all the proportions were like a normal dog. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, what's wrong? And it's so adorable, of course, but like, what is wrong? What is with this dog? And no, they're that's the way they were bred, to be herding dogs. And I found out about their history, how they herd cattle and sheep and from Wales. And I remember when the dog got in the backyard and just started booking after some squirrels and ripping around the yard and tearing up the dust. And I was blown away. And it was like, I call them hobbit foxes. That's what I call them. These things are like little
I,
hobbit
I've never
foxes,
heard that, but that's I like that.
dwarven foxes. But so full of energy and light, and their faces, and they're one of the most intelligent dog breeds. The more I learned, the more I loved. And I found out, being from Wales, they had like a loose history with the fairies, that they were like,
Mhm.
the Welsh folklore. This goes back quite a ways. With There were some poems written some different like things hinting at there's some, that these are like magical little steeds of the fairies, and it's been depicted in art and stuff. And so like I'm a sketchbook fiend, so I'm always drawing in my sketchbook. And back then, while I was still in college, it was drawing every day, all the time. And and I drew the world around me, and corgis were one of my favorite subjects. So I did that for a few years, and then my wife had a great idea to do some paintings. She's like, "You love drawing the corgis so much. Why don't you do some paintings?" I did that, and I did
Mhm.
about 20 paintings, and went to an actual dog show, and was able to. I met a lot of the corgi people in that community, and then my paintings went over real well. They were well received. And then I ended up zip ahead a few years to I had the idea for Corgi, but it was kind of I worked on it in my own time, and I was becoming an illustrator nationally, and I was in animation too. I studied drawing, illustration, animation, and I was working at Disney too. Got to work there a little bit. Had a lot of variety of clients in
What
Central
did, what did,
Florida here.
what did you do? At,
I was actually back when it was one of the last films they did when they used to draw the film's traditional animation. So I was able to work on Brother Bear, which was like the last film we did here in the Florida studio, and that was a lot
that's
of fun. Kind
that
of live a
was
lifelong dream of that. So even though animation industry was changing, I was like the generation, one of the last that where they still drew everything
Mhm.
by hand for the screen, and that's the main reason I wanted to get into animation, is because of the drawing element. And then when that kind of became more digital, I kind of switched gears and went back into illustration, which is kind of where, and we'll talk about this. The book itself, the skills you could learn in animation translate very well to comics and graphic novels, and you see artists crossing over all the time because
Mhm.
they're sequential. And there's, its other neighbor is books, picture books, and so, they're definitely different. Each discipline has its own special requirements and skills, but I think they're more closely related than different. And so yeah, that's what happened. And Corgi is kind of like an animated film, just in, book form. So kind of storyboard esque. And zipping ahead to, I was out of Disney. They closed the studio. I was freelancing, and I ended up going to Syracuse University for a master's degree in illustration, and we had to do a big thesis project. And I said, "Well, this is a it's the opportunity to do a dream project." And I was like, "Well, let me do the Corgi book." So I went from drawing corgis in my sketchbook to doing the Corgi paintings, and then I took the big leap to do a graphic novel, which was, I always thought, very intimidating, because to me comics, it just were so labor intensive, and they required so much out of, I think, the artist and creator, because of all the volume of drawings and the storytelling. So that was always a dream of mine, and so I said, "Well, I'm going to do it," and I and that's what I did. It was the thesis project for Syracuse there, and I self-published it at first, and took that to a comic book show, MegaCon, here in Orlando in
Yeah.
2005. And then yeah, and then that ended up, I met the great people at Top Shelf, and they were interested in the book. Um and then we decided they published it properly. My self-published version was very rough, but it had a majority of the book that you see, but we added another about 20% of pages, and we built the story out, the folklore of it. And away I went.
So to
So
kind of put things into a chronological timeline here, you
yeah.
were at Disney. You worked on Brother Bear, which, by the way, had the Phil Collins songs, and I remember seeing it in
Yeah.
theaters. I'm a big fan of hand drawn animation. I miss it, and I know I'm not the only one.
Yeah, you
There's
are not
there's
alone. Yeah.
there's something beautiful about it. So this is really cool.
Hmm.
Not the part about you losing your job and the studio shutting down, but you decided to continue with that, right? You then say,
Yeah.
"Well, I did that thing, and now I think I'm going to go into accounting." You stuck with
Right.
it. You went to
Yeah.
school. You self-published your own graphic novel, and I love hearing this.
Yeah.
And then, as James is saying, Brother Bear came out in 2003, meaning
That's
that
right.
by the
Yeah.
time the movie came out, you saw your stuff in the movie theater. That must have been one heck of an experience for you. And by 2005, you were at MegaCon in
Yeah.
Orlando,
Yeah.
where Top Shelf was, and they saw your stuff and they decided to publish it. So I mean that's a really cool journey of somebody not giving up on what they really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think it says a lot about you as a person, because yeah, I think most people get discouraged whenever something like that would happen in their lives. And they're like, well, it was cool.
Yeah.
I got my credit in a movie,
Yeah.
but it's time to to go work in accounting, or time to go work in IT,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Well, yeah, no, it was I was okay though, because it was like I had been doing art for, as long as I could remember, and I
Mhm.
always wanted to do illustration, and um the animation was sort of a pie in the sky dream, but with illustration there's a lot more opportunity. So I was able to as long as I'm drawing, that's what I always say, I want to go where the party is, wherever drawing is.
This is
And
it.
in my heart, it's always been like sequential art. I love comics, I love animation, I love picture books,
Mhm.
and so I kind of volley in all those areas. And yeah, I go where the party is, as long as I'm drawing, and telling stories with the drawings. Definitely like an illustrator, I'm kind of just that's the stuff I gravitate to. I don't I love fine art. I love all other types of art, but it's always all roads are go back to these books and stories, like doing something fantastic with drawings and
Mhm.
trying to push that medium. And that's what Corgi is for
Hmm.
me. It's kind of my attempt at the comic medium. So,
Well, you more than succeeded. I want to. I Whenever I did my overview, this is an excellent question from Matt. I have a 8-year-old nephew who loves corgis, and I'm
hmm
trying to get him in the comics. He's advanced as far as reading levels. Would this be good for him? When doing my overview, I was thinking, okay, for me, this is a book that's completely all ages.
hmm
I don't see any problems with it. But then, as I was flipping through it, uh, there's minor violence and some things that might freak out some little kids, maybe because every kid is different, just like every parent raising their kids different. But me, I would have no problem with my kids at any age reading this, because
hmm
kids are always curious about like the 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 darkness and things that
hmm
are bad and things that are scary. Like they kind of it kind of piques their interest. So I
hmm
think this has enough of that in there to uh you know like the ogres and the way that they're designed,
yeah,
uh to kind of balance out the light of everything that's happening. um I think this is a book for all ages, but you
yeah,
are the creator. What do you think?
yeah.
Somebody like Matt asking a question, is this book good
Yeah,
for an
hey
8-year-old?
Matt. Thanks for I see the comment here in the chat. That's awesome. Yeah, I 8 is fine. I designed the book to be all ages. Uh I don't think there's anything in there that you wouldn't normally see on a typical Saturday morning animated show. Um it is a different book, like, and it'll, even though that book is pretty thick when you hold it up, it's something we failed to mention, Omar. We might have buried the lead here, but the it's a silent book for the most part,
Mhm.
and
It's
so
wordless. Absolutely.
there you got a narrator. He appears 5 or 6 times, and he sets things up, and the narrator gives you just one page of text, let you know what you need to know, and then you're launched into the story in a visual way. The book is pen and ink illustration, just line work. And I want to tell the pictures in a quote unquote silent story. But that leaves the viewer, the reader, to bring their own voices to the elements and read through it. I was fascinated. I love storytelling and animation where it's primarily told in the visuals. And
So
I've always been that way.
I
And so, yeah.
I have a question about that because I think doing my over. It's so cool that I just did my overview a couple days ago. And now I have the creator here with me, and a
Yeah.
big thank you to Holly for setting all of this up. By the way,
Yes.
so
Thank you.
for for something like this, when you're writing it out at one hold on a second. He's watched horror movies and action movies. He probably shouldn't be seeing this from his mom. So it sounds like he'll be fine. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
He'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. This would be great since it doesn't have many actual words, but there's a bit of non-Corgi violence if that concerns you. Corgi is a fantasy setting is an unusual combination. What was the inspiration for that? Oh, there's so many good questions. Okay.
That's a good one. I could get on that last one there about the unusual
Um,
combination of elements. If
yeah,
you
but
want.
before
Yeah.
before we get on that, I have one question. Did
Yeah.
at any point where there a narrative? Was there actual dialogue that the characters were saying? And then at
Yeah.
one
That's a
point did you
great
say
question.
at what
Yeah.
point
That's
did
a
you go, no,
yeah.
it doesn't need it?
Yeah. That's a great question, Omar. I originally the vision was a silent story. Tell it with just pictures.
Oh, interesting.
And
Okay.
that was the original vision, and I did rough the whole thing out, and I said, well, I did want a narrator. I knew it was going to, and you kind of need to know what the character names are. So I was like, I knew there was going to be a glossary in the back for like a little mini encyclopedia of all the characters and what their names are, so you could refer to them. Okay, so I knew there was going to be a little text in the front and back, but then I was like, maybe I should do some dialogue. And so I started writing some of that out. And to be honest with you, the version I did, well, it was twofold. The first was I wanted to design the bubbles in a way that were very unique. And to me, they were too close to what a normal dialogue bubble was. The big cutout with the letters inside.
Mhm.
And I wasn't happy from a graphic design standpoint. And then I'm like struggling with it. And I had both versions, a non-verbal and the one with the text, and the people in my, that I'm in my world, my life, I shared it with them, and my gut feeling was just like I like the one without the text. I think so. Why force it? Why? You know what I mean? Why? And I wanted, like, you held that one of the examples is the wallpaper in the background. Like, I really wanted to get into the detail, the pen and ink,
I
and
love
add
it.
like stories within stories, like the whole concept of detail. And when you have a bubble with text, sometimes that takes away, like, so it gives,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And I'm not against it, and it's there here and there, but so minor. It's kind of like the old EC comics. Speaking of horror and stuff, but the old EC,
Yeah.
to bring something really strange, and this might be a precursor to addressing the next question about mixing genres,
Mhm.
and I'll talk about that in a sec with my storytelling. But some of those old comics, like from the '50s and stuff, they did a text. You had like beautiful artists like Jack Davis and Al Williamson, right? And Graham Ingalls. And then they'd have the dialogue balloon and they'd have a text description describing exactly what was going on in the art. And I found it to be unnecessary. And so I said, remove the text box. You don't need that. So less is more, I guess, that kind of thing. So
There is beautiful artwork in here that I think should not be covered. Even if it
thanks.
was, I think like maybe an artist edition. I bought this masterpiece on Kindle today.
Oh, thank you very much.
I want to thank you for your review. You are so welcome. Thank you for one of the greatest and sweetest graphic novels
Oh,
ever created. Now
oh,
that
that means a
is
lot. Thank you.
so.
Thank you.
Let's go back to this question. Corgis
Yes.
is in a fantasy setting is such an unusual combination because they do have. I in my overview I talked about how they do have magical powers like you would
Right.
normally see, like breathing fire.
Right. Right.
What was the inspiration for that?
So when I first you see the corgis, and I think the impulse is I'm just going to tell a story about a dog, a corgi, and they're magical enough in real life. Like this world, when you meet one, I mean, they're special enough. You don't need any of the razzle dazzle of fantasy elements, sci-fi fantasy or woodland fairy tale. They're good on their own. But I've always been a believer of, well, if you're going to do animation, if you're going to do a comic book or draw the thing in picture book or graphic novel, whatever, if you're going to use the power of that, you could use your imagination. You should open the doors wide and open it for things like that. And so, being that this was a labor of love, this could be the only comic I ever do. I was like, let me just throw everything out there. And I'm a big believer in stories that have a range. I don't like a cookie cutter approach where it's just one note. I like to me the stories. I'm not saying you can't have a funny story, and those things are. I've had great I've comedies in my life that I've movies or whatever and books, but I like the ones that really sit with me. The ones that really hit me are the ones that aren't in a box. It's not just a comedy. A good story to me has drama, imagination, fantasy, comedy, horror, sadness, inspiration. I want to see a variety of emotions. When I take a story in, I want to feel all those things. And so for Corgi, I thought, well, you got a woodland fairy tale, and I don't want to spoil anything in the book, but yes, that's where the fantasy setting came in. It was a woodland fairy tale, and that's what it looks like optically at first. And you start reading it, and you're like, wow, there's no words. Okay. And then all of a sudden, the dog does something. I don't want to spoil it for the readers, but all of a sudden, there's a power here that was unexpected. And that's taking advantage of the medium of comics, right? I could do that and doing it in a believable way, hopefully. And then the next book, we turned it on its head. Book two had a sci-fi element.
Mhm.
So even
I
though
like
it's a
that about
woodland fairy tale, yeah, we had a sci-fi element. And then then book three did something, a device I love, which are flashbacks, where we saw a flashback, which I didn't know how I was going to do that with a silent book. How do you do a flashback? But was able to pull that off, I think, with the style, the art actually changes into, I think you're right there, that like woodblock print quality.
it.
Yes. Yes.
I
So
really
for,
enjoy a story within a story.
yeah,
It's cool.
yeah. Yeah. So to me, I hopefully the reader, gets an appreciation for those things. I think it is kind of like making a soup, though, or cooking a meal. You got to throw a lot of ingredients in, and hopefully it comes out okay. I will say this: I did as even though there's no words, I planned. I wrote outlines. I thumbnailed it. I worked with Chris Staros at Top Shelf, who was awesome, a great editor, and helping get what he was, getting the best story out of me that was possible, and doing the different elements was a big part of that. And nothing happened by accident. I mean, I really wrote everything out, the clear ending,
Mhm.
and then I thumbnailed the whole book and I roughed it, and then just trying to make it better, trying to make it better. So that was my process there, and hopefully that unusual combination, as it was put, uh, it's not going to appeal to everybody, but hopefully it appeals to some.
So you coming from animation, you know
Yes.
about storyboarding, you know how to tell a sequential story. At what point did you decide, you know, I think colors would actually hurt this because there's just so much detail in every page and every
Yeah.
panel and every strand of hair. You- I don't know if anybody's told you this, but some of the I wish I could find it. It's okay. This isn't a spoiler, but this page right here
Oh yeah.
reminds me of the art in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh, I love that. Classic, classic.
Okay. So you
Thank you.
take that
You
as a
made my
compliment.
day. There's a bunch of people making my day today. Thank you.
Well, you
Thank
deserve
you.
it. You deserve it. This is so cool. And you got started on this a long time ago. I mean, if your first book was
Yeah.
published in self-published in 2004, 2005, is that when they came out?
Yeah. Yeah. I did like the self-published. I got my degree at Syracuse 2005. That was the final thesis project.
Mhm.
And I self-published that. It took about a year after Top Shelf and I, worked on that deal, and agreed to have them publish it, and that was 2007. And then it was book 2 was 2009 or 2008. It was only a year or two after. But then book 3 was 2011. And at that point, I was becoming a national picture book illustrator and getting a lot other work. So, and I was, like I mentioned, I became a dad. We had twins. My wife and I had twins in 2007. In fact, Omar, we brought the twins home from the hospital, and on the doorstep was the first copies of Corgi Book 1 from Top Shelf.
Oh, what a special day.
It
Like
was.
what a wonderful day. You brought your kiddos home and there is your
Yeah,
book that someone took interest in and said, "Hey,
right,
we would like to publish that everywhere." That's
right.
great. I love hearing that.
And full circle, Omar. I don't want to spoil ahead here, but you already know this. I told you when we started the conversation. But today is a special day because right before this interview, about 2-3 hours ago, big old UPS truck dropped off a bunch of boxes. I have yet to see the final copy.
Oh, you haven't seen the copy
I
yet?
haven't seen. Well, we of course it was all digital, so like I
Right.
approved. We were approving going through the roughs, but they is sitting in a box right now behind me, and you're holding the book up, and I'm all jealous. I'm looking at it. I have yet to hold the physical book in my hands. Now, what I do have, these are my studio copies of all the Corgi books. So this is how they were originally released. There's book 1.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm doing them out of order. That's book 2, right? I don't know if it's
Yep.
coming in a little there. Okay. Then book 3.
So these are the ones that were originally published by Top Shelf?
Yep.
Okay.
Book 4. And this is book 5, which is pretty recent. This came out. I finished all the art for this. I think it was like 2018, 19.
Mm-hmm.
And this got published, I think it was 2020 in March. And
So,
what was going on then? That was when the
oh,
world
that
was
was
shut
right
down.
at the
Actually,
beginning.
let's see. Actually, no. Yeah, it was 2020. I think it was 2021. So it was that first year of everything closing. So there
Yeah.
was no comic shows or anything. So it was kind of bittersweet. It was kind of because it came out, but there was no shows or anything to
So you couldn't even go
celebrate
out to
it.
promote it or
But
celebrate.
it's still cool to see. And so this is how I've always had it. I said, I got all 5 books right here. And so if you want me to open the box, you want
Yeah, I want
to get
to
my
see.
live reaction
I
here?
want to see your reaction. I ordered my copy earlier today, and as a Welshman who is into all Welsh folklore and myths, I am looking forward to the Welsh Easter eggs.
Okay.
Well, I hope you enjoy them. That's
Yeah.
awesome. There's 2 equally important things, Matt: comics and children. We're doing a live. It's usually me doing the unboxing. This is cool. I get to see
Here
somebody
it is
else.
right here. It's a big old box.
All right.
Heavy. I thought maybe it was another picture book that I had done, but
Mhm.
it is way too heavy. Oh yeah. Look at that.
What's the first thing you do? Do you ever smell them like fresh off the press?
Oh, that's the good stuff right there.
Does it ever get old seeing your name?
Oh, I don't. Nah, that's unbelievable. Like I still can't believe that's happened.
That's amazing.
No, what matters is the book, that the story was done and it's out in the world. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Top Shelf does such a nice job too. IDW with the printing quality so I am really in fact, my wife and kids are coming home here in a little bit, and we'll be sharing this with them.
So I wanted to ask you about that while you're flipping
Yes.
through your book. No, you go on and flip, Christian. This is your day.
That's okay. That's okay.
Go on and flip.
Well, actually, if you look at the difference, and some of the people that have met me at conventions in the past, so yeah, I love this new format. So it is a little thicker than the other ones, a little taller because of how heavy or how many pages it is. but it still holds up next to the other ones. And what's nice about this volume is it includes the free comic book day stories in the back. I think there were 6 of them.
Yeah, that's what I
Well,
wanted to talk to you about.
yeah, Corgi short tales,
Th-
and
Those haven't been collected before.
they were never collected. They were in individual little, the flimsies on Free Comic Book Day,
I remember those.
and that was awesome. And so nice to see it all under
Dude,
one
so I
roof.
have to ask, in the first story, Cloud Cat, it's story by
Yeah,
Katie and Nate Slade.
yeah, that's the kiddos. So we
So is
sat
this the
down.
first this is the first time they're going to see their name, well, printed on a book this big?
That's true. Yeah, yeah, because the only other time this was published was in the floppy
The
one.
free comic book day. Oh man,
Yeah,
that's wonderful. And is Anne, is that your wife?
that's my wife. So she again, she helped inspire so much of. She introduced me to corgis. We ended up having the corgis. We had 2 for years that were the models too for
Mhm.
this, and um yeah, I mean, Anne is everything. Anne's the center of my life. So everything kind
Oh.
of all
Well, I
roads back
I
to Anne there.
I saw the very beginning where you were thanking people. So
Yeah.
you you definitely share the love with everybody that has helped you along the way, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's all those corgi people like at the shows, the dog shows I used to go to. I used to draw people's dogs on the spot, do little portraits, watercolor portraits, and gosh, going way back. And then the shows, I'd go to the comic book shows, and it was just so great. The reactions, people would come up to the table and they attempted not to read the whole thing, but the reaction was great because there's no words. They could get through half a book pretty quickly, and it's like, and so it was a good, it was good. They got a sense whether they liked it or not, but it's just to see that. I miss it. I really do. And I'm hoping now that we finally got the big omnibus, and it looks like I'm hoping 2025, maybe even some shows later this year. We'll see. I got to look at my schedule, but I'm hoping
That's
to
great.
get back out there. But Omar, it's awesome just to have, like I said, I finished this 2020. In
Mhm.
2019 I had the art done, really, because I sent the art in. This stuff takes sometimes a year or two, to get it all together. So I haven't really drawn in this world for 5 years, 6 years, which is quite a while. So I'm
Which
kind of like, we don't even we don't do the corgis. They've gone to the Rainbow Bridge years ago, my gosh. Even before I finished the 5th book, and actually going back to saying how much we love we have cats now, which are great too. uh
you
and
know, there was a Cloud Cat in there, and
there you go, good
there
one.
could be a
Yeah.
spin-off series of these Cloud Cats, you know?
I like what you're thinking. So yeah, I'm for now, this is a nice conclusion to the book. I'm very happy just looking at it from first glance here. Um, so yeah, no, this it's a privilege to be able to talk about it here with you today. Definitely.
Well, I'm glad that I was here to see you open it up live. That was really cool. I've interviewed a lot of people, but I've never had anybody open up their finished product on the
Yeah.
stream before. So that was really cool. And like I said, it is totally your day. Without you,
Oh
like,
no, it's
you know,
not. Omar, it's weird. I don't know how to describe it. It's like you're it's not. I move on. Like as soon as the art is done, I
mhm,
truly turn the page. I move forward.
okay.
And so it's weird. The books show up on the door, and when you first get into this whole thing, you're like, "Oh, I can't wait to see my stuff in print." But it takes me back. It totally takes me out of my element to see it. It's a shock almost, and I almost see it detached. Like, did I do this? Did I, because I'm already working on these other things, and it's like, oh my goodness. But it's without a doubt like a sweet time for reflection. But it's weird too. There's a little sadness mingled in there that it's
Mhm.
done, and I'm doing my best right now to kind of keep it together for you.
Oh,
But I,
that's
it'll
wonderful.
be later in the day when I really sit and think about it and look at this and show
Well,
my family. I'll start coming all mushy about it. But yeah,
Christian, hear me out. Hear me out. The
yeah.
story doesn't have to end.
Ah,
It's up to you as the narrator,
that's true.
the
That's
wart of the story, to continue the many, many tales that you were, with all these different characters that you introduced through here. This is just the beginning of the world building of the way I see it, Christian.
I like it. I like the idea. Yeah, nothing, never close the door fully.
That's
But
right. Stories never should end.
yeah.
What you mentioned you've been working on other things. I know you've had some children's books that have been
Yeah,
coming out
so
and really
yeah,
popular.
along the same road with Corgi, I'm a full-time illustrator of picture books, and I've been working with Ranger Rick magazine every month for the last 15 years, where I illustrate a story for them. Ranger Rick Jr. magazine. I
I remember
do
my brother
Rick,
used to get those.
yeah, Ricky and Pals, the story. So that's really cool. And like I said, 15 years is an amazing run on that. And then I do these books. I actually pulled one here. Hang on
What
one
do you got?
second. This series this is actually with Random House too, the little good night books. Where do diggers sleep at night? And then we had a whole series of these that we're doing. And then I actually pulled this one out because I do I do put the little Easter eggs in these. Now these are not these do have words. I didn't write these, but
But you're
if
the
you can
illustrator.
yeah, I think you could see if you zoom in.
Hey, there's a
So,
cameo of Sprout. That's supposed
yeah,
to be
yeah.
Sprout.
Yeah, I'm always trying to you try to sneak them in where you can, So like I said, like you just said, the door is never closed. You never know, and sometimes the last project spills over into the next one.
All right,
You could always go back.
that's right. Look, I like what my friend Max is saying here. You can keep it going and call it the never-ending
Ah, there
Corgi.
you go. I like it. That's
Uh,
cool.
okay, so you're working on those. What else are you working on now that you've done
Well,
this? Now that you've done
yeah.
sequential art,
So,
it's taking you a long time. Do you see yourself going and doing something very similar to this?
well, yeah. The question's going to be, what's the next one? And I've got to my left here. I have a nice stack of folders, and each folder is projects at varying levels. Some are picture books, some are graphic novels, some are comics, and it's just a matter of which one's going to get attention first. But my kids, and working at home and life and has been so busy. I've got about another 2 years before they are out of high school, and then I'm going to have a little more time. And so right now is actually I'm starting to think about what I want the next thing to be. I am not ready to get into it yet, but I will say this: it'll be a standalone. I do know that, and
Mhm.
it will probably have another mix of elements. Like this was a woodland fairy tale that had sci-fi elements. It'll be something maybe as of right now, it's got a fantastic element to it, but more tied to this world. But it's in its early stages right now. I love comics. I love drawing, animation, picture books, but I'm also I kind of overthink things sometimes. So it takes me a while, and so it's got to be right. But I'll be back. In the meantime, I'm hoping to get back out there with the Corgi books, and hopefully this finds some new readers that haven't seen it yet. Because it's funny, it's when you work on a book series as long as this one has gone on, I've seen these kids grow up. Like
Right, and
these
if you've been
kids
doing
were
this since
kids, and
2003,
then
you're talking 20 years later.
these kids are like getting married, and they're about to have kids. It's like, oh my goodness, that's how you've been you've been on a project a long time. So that's where we're at right now. But it's a nice celebration, and you never know what the future holds. But Top Shelf IDW definitely, they've been nothing but sweet to me, and looking forward to working on getting this out in the world right now. and having a new look at Corgi, and then we'll see what the future holds.
Well, this time around, it's a little different than when book number 5 came out. It's a
Yeah.
lot more open out there now. You're not stuck inside the house anymore.
Yeah, I haven't been to a show. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not keeping an eye on things. I see they're going on. Have you been to shows, Omar? Do you get to go to
Yes,
a
sir.
bunch?
I
Yeah.
not a bunch, not as many as I want to. But since this is what I do full time.
Yeah.
Um, I have a Saturday Q&A every Saturday, so it kind of stops me from going to things on weekends. But I did go to C2E2. We had a panel there
Yeah.
that was really, really cool,
Uh-huh.
and I still managed to do the Q&A in the mornings. So,
Wonderful.
yeah, I've gone to shows since they kind of opened back up. Uh, we went to New York Comic Con in 2022 and 23,
Hmm.
and Heroes Con in 2022. That's a wonderful show.
Oh,
If
I
you can,
love Heroes. I love
okay,
Sheldon. He's awesome. And
yes, great
yeah.
show, great show.
Yeah, I did
Um,
that for the launch of book 2, I think. It was that. So it's been a while, but I
that's
think
your
I
type of
had.
crowd. That's your type of
Oh,
crowd you're
so
looking
good.
for.
I was in the Indie Island. They were so good to me. And I think I've always done San Diego when there's a new book. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure about this year, but next year. So
I heard
hopefully.
San Diego was wonderful last year. I haven't
Yeah.
been since 1997, so it's been a
Oh my
long
goodness.
time
Oh wow.
for me. But I heard from last year from the people that went, it was more about the comics and
Good.
less about the entertainment. So that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
This is from Elon. He's saying in
Yeah, I
Welsh,
see.
Corgi means dwarf dog. We have two
Mm-hmm.
main breeds: the Pembrokeshire corgis,
Hmm.
and he corrected himself, the Cardigans
Cardigans.
corgi.
Yeah. Yep. That's great. And thank you, Elon, for writing that. And yeah, so we have here in the States, we've got two types of corgis, the Pembroke Welsh corgis, which are from the Pembrokeshire region, which is what the book is based on. But there's cardigans have the tails, and they are a
Oh,
different breed in real life. But I don't want to spoil too much. But the book does address the issue with tails a little bit there, and that's something to look at. I don't want to spoil too much, but we touch on that a little in the book. Yeah, no, both great dogs, great breeds, and but they are different. I thought they were the same breed. They're not, though.
I thought that.
They're not. They're, and
Yeah.
I'll
So
and you ask them, they'll tell you. The corgi breeders, they'll tell you that.
well, I learned everything I know about corgis
Yeah,
comes from my brother. My brother loves corgis. This is
yeah.
he
So
has a new corgi now,
okay, nice.
and what is her? He used to have Boomerang, and this is Flurry. He
Uh,
loves that dog. And all the myths and
uh,
things that I've heard, like when you were talking about the herding and the little
sure.
what do they call this little thing? Like a harness where the elves are supposed to ride or something?
Yeah, so if you look on the back, right where the shoulder blade is,
Mhm.
they got this little triangular thing. It almost looks like reins. Like they say
Yeah,
that's
that's what
where
it
the
is.
where the little the carriage reins would hook up to the ferry carts. And again, little poems written, hinted at, and all those were little ingredients for me to kind of use as a springboard for this story.
So as soon as I got this, I took pictures of it, and he's like,
Uh,
"Well, I got to get that. When does it come out?"
I think you
Uh,
got your Christmas present all sorted out this year, maybe, no?
that's true. Oh no,
Or
no, no.
birthday, or
He's the type that will go and buy it now.
oh, he's not
Like
gonna wait.
he's
Okay,
not
all
waiting. He's not waiting.
right.
He loves his corgis, and I think this isn't just for anybody that likes corgis. This is for people
Right.
that just love animals, that
Sure.
love to get lost in this fantasy world,
Yeah.
that like happy endings. That I did say in my video, because I do have viewers that if an animal gets hurt or something happens to them, they can't. Because everybody's different. People, you lose pets and you don't want to read about it. And I was like, no, no, there's none of that going on in here. You're fine.
Yeah.
You will
I
be
think we're
completely fine.
good. I think we're good. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's an all ages story, and it was designed that way. I don't there's nothing in here that is devastating. I don't think.
No,
Um,
like I said, the most it's the little the maybe the creepy little pictures that reminds me of scary stories to tell in the dark.
yeah.
But that was a compliment because I love
Uh,
that book, and even as a kid, I would look at I'm like, look at the creepy strands of hair. How is that?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. The horror, you could call them horror if you want. I mean, that's what I call it. The elements are there, as the way a tree is drawn or a creature. It's more, their element in the environment. But like I said, I'm doing that to create. It's a bit like a carnival, really. You go to the haunted house and you run through it, and then you go on a roller coaster or a Ferris wheel or something. Hey, there's each ride has its own like flavor to it, That's kind of how I look at reading a comic, you
so,
know.
I here's one more comment, and
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something at work right now, but I just want to say Omar's review convinced me to get this book. Looks absolutely. Oh, I hope you enjoy it. Like everybody that gets this
Thank
book,
you,
I hope
Alfred.
you
Yeah.
all enjoy it because it's beautiful. You said you were in the comics. Tell me about your childhood. What comics, or even in your adulthood, what comics were you into?
Oh, and it's funny. It's those early years, they really stick with you, right? Well, uh, for me, it was I got a little one of those little paperback digest size reprint in the '70s of the Fantastic Four. Those first 6 issues were in that little uh, Valentine, I think, a little short paperback, Jack Kirby. So for me, I started with FF, and my grandpa, he'd give me some comics, Spider-Man, the good, Marvel, Silver Age stuff, and then from there, the GI Joe 21, Silent Interlude, huge,
Oh, the Snake Eyes issue.
huge,
Oh, with the tattoo.
hugely
That's so
instrumental
good.
on Corgi, huge. And if you look at, I've had plenty of comic people look at it. They look at Corgi like, oh, do you know GI Joe 21? Of course, I know GI Joe 21. And Larry
That's
Hama's classic there, but
way
yeah,
ahead of
and
way ahead of the times too. Of like
still ahead
the
of the time,
oh,
still
that
ahead.
guy's so good.
Love
And,
it.
and I remember I got to interview him 2 years ago, and I told him off record.
Yeah,
I was like, you were doing that before there was enough said issues because Marvel went through this whole phase of like enough
that's
said
right.
for 1 month. Yeah.
Yep,
And
I
I was
remember
like,
that. Yep,
oh, that's so
yep,
cool. And he was like, yeah, and the
yeah.
big reveal. And I'm like, oh man, I remember that. I love that
Pretty
stuff.
cool.
I'm so glad you mentioned that issue. So that's really cool. Um,
Yeah, I love all comics, even like some of the old stuff. If it's good, I'll read it. Although it's only so much time. I like the EC stuff. I like the
yes.
old '50s horror. I love that the stories are great. Some of the art is like, when it's good, it's as good as anything. Really good. I love the DC and Marvel, like even the Bronze stuff, Swamp Thing. Love Bernie Wrightson. Bernie Wrightson had
Oh,
corgis. So him and I met him a few times and got along real well. He was wonderful. He was so supportive of my work, and uh, he was awesome. And and even now, like I read Fables. I like Fables.
mhm.
Bill Wilmingham's Fables. That was like the last big thing I read, and I know that's been done for a while.
Well, and that's also a long story. Like
Yeah,
it's over
yeah,
150 issues, so it's a lot.
yeah. I love that. And A Walking Dead. I read all that,
Okay, okay. Well, it
which is
doesn't show
cool.
Walking Dead in Corgi. Like you didn't draw a lot of
Yeah,
inspiration on
I think
that.
there's a rotten apple in there, and some flies are flying out of it. That gets a little. That's like the grossest. I think that's probably the grossest panel in the whole
I
book.
love that panel because
I
it threw
was
me off because
like,
as I was flipping through, I'm like, oh, that's good. I like it. Okay, okay. I
yeah.
have to. This is a good question because I was gonna ask it. Is Sprout
Okay.
based on a real dog?
Yeah, Joe Mama, thanks for writing in. Yeah, Sprout based on a real dog. So yeah, Sprout is pretty much a mixture of well, he's mainly, I had a dog, Leo, Mr. Lee, we called him, and he was the basis. He was an undersized little boy, red and white corgi, and Leo, yeah, Mr. Lee. Some people knew him when he used to take him to the corgi shows. We'd bring him, and then Penny was my angel, and she was like 3 years older than Leo, and It was like it was Leo's body personality, kind of, but Penny was like the angelic. She's like the perfect corgi in terms of like the way, like she was like she could have been a show dog, and so she had all the perfect like. So I don't know. It's kind of a mixture of the two of them, Penny and Lee. So, but yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you feel comfortable answering this, but I'm
Mm,
always curious. For anybody that has ever lost a pet,
mm,
it's wrecking. It will wreck you, like especially if you love animals, and you seem like
yeah.
somebody that does.
Oh yeah.
When you lost them, did it hurt to continue drawing the character of Sprout
Mm.
based on them?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. Yeah. So what happened was Corgi is sort of my love letter out of enthusiasm for not really having a dog growing up.
Yeah,
So I had Penny, and then we got Leo, and yeah, they were with me while I did all these Corgi books and even the
yeah,
paintings before. And I remember we had finished. Let me get this right. We finished book. So that would have been, yeah, book four. Okay, so book four I finished it. The series wasn't done, and Leo was sick. We had lost Penny first a few years before. She was sudden, and she was a sweetheart. She was never a problem. So, but I'll tell you this, yeah, it was tough. I mean, but here's the thing that got me through the whole process of having an elder pet that was passing was um, I took pride in the fact that I raised these dogs as puppies, and I was their owner. We took care of them, and I said, "This is part of being a dog owner. That this is part of it. I'm not. This is what. This is just another step." And so I took pride in that. I'm going to do the best job possible, and I made sure they were taken care of, and they were still loved, and I carried them outside when they couldn't walk, and did
uh,
the help clean up all that difficulty, but I took ownership of it and said, this is part of it. This is part of being a pet owner and loving the pet. And I took great pride in that, until the very end. And then yeah, you're a steward of them. You take care of them, and you're a steward of their memory. And as an artist, I needed a break. Absolutely. I finished book four, and I don't think I took like probably I think it was, yeah, at least a year off. So I took a huge break there until I was ready. And I knew
yeah,
I was ready. Like I had plenty of other stuff going on in my life, which helps, right?
yeah, absolutely.
But like with anything like that's major going on in your life, or any hardship or tragedy you face, or and it's varying, some people, like it was tough. The first one was the worst, of course. It does. I know you hear those cliches, but they're true. It did get easier the second time because I had that mindset of, well, I could do this. What was tough was the empty house. We didn't have,
Oh man, yeah.
yeah, that was tough. But again, all that is part of, it's true what they say. It sounds corny, but they do live on in your hearts and your mind, and in your memories, and that's a beautiful thing. And so I'm just fortunate I was able to put them into something like this, and to me it's a way of kind of honor and seeing them again. So and it's so, but that is part of being a pet owner, and that's something I had to learn, and I did learn it. And now we turn the page, and we've had other pets. We got four right now, and we lost one a few years ago, and it's never easy. But what gets me through it is I say, you know what? That's part of this. That's part. You don't just sign up for the good stuff. You sign up for all of it.
Yeah.
So
The reason I asked, because when my kids, who are now, oh my gosh, 14 and
uh,
11,
yeah.
but when they were little, I would tell them stories, and our dog was part of the story. And then when I had to let her go,
Yeah.
it became really hard. And
Yeah.
I think they understood that I couldn't, like,
Yeah.
I had to take a break from telling that particular story, because it would every night I would go in there and tell them a continuing story. And I haven't thought
Yeah.
about this in a long time. And I
Well,
thought, oh my goodness, having to draw the the this personification of both of
Yeah.
your pets that you've lost, that had to have been difficult, but
Yeah.
maybe also therapeutic too.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was hard getting back into it a year after it passed. Like once I started, that was
Mhm.
tough. And I remember saying to my wife, I'm like, I think I even backed out. Like I started and I had to, I'm like, I'm not ready. Like, and I actually started working on pages that didn't have the dog in them, just so I didn't have to. There was a sequence that had no corgis for a little bit. It's not many, but it seems like he's always there in a little. But no, there was a section, a good chunk where it wasn't. So I just focused on that. And then, yeah, it was tough. What was tough too was like the ending. Like I was so close at the end and just finishing those drawings. But it's part of being uh, it's an honor to be a storyteller. It's an honor to tell stories, to read stories, to create stories. We're all storytellers, and and I think if you keep that in mind, we're all pretty lucky. We're all, we're lucky to be able to experience, stories in life, and just to be able to, have known them is a gift. So
Well,
yeah,
that is a beautiful way of looking at our pets. I think what you
yeah,
said, it does not sound corny at all. What you said
yeah.
is
Oh,
true, and I've always heard like letting them go is it's the last thing you can show them how much you love them. So,
yeah.
um,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
What let's flip it a notch here.
Flip it. Flip. I'm waiting,
Let's go
Omar.
towards
Let's go.
animation.
And you're
Animation. You're
sitting there with this like Bucky shirt on. I'm like,
Oh,
I'm
Buck,
bringing
yeah,
you
we got a
down. I'm
Bucky's in
like,
Kentucky, man.
hey, is that did they just come in there or?
We got it last year, so we made like a trip. We made a pilgrimage to Bucky's.
Ooh, sounds like fun. I
Yeah.
gotta tell you, I still haven't been in. I still
Oh,
haven't
you
been in
haven't?
one yet. I
Oh,
know. I
it's
gotta go.
like
Everyone keeps telling
a
me they're like,
crazy
you gotta go.
amusement park.
That's what it
They
looks
have a
like, and I
Bucky
love that
mascot
stuff.
walking around dressed like a
Oh my,
giant beaver, and you're like, "Where am I?
uh,
What is this? A
that's
gas station?"
that
Um,
sounds incredible. That sounds like a comic book right there. Do
it's
they have Bucky's?
ridiculous.
Do they have comics? Bucky's comics? They should.
No, they don't. Maybe. Hey,
What's going
there's
on
a
here? They
pitch.
got.
There's a
They
pitch.
clearly have room for like. It looks like you could fit 50,000 spinner racks in there.
They got plenty of room,
Yeah.
believe me. So in animation,
Yeah.
I gotta ask you. So what made you get into animation? Were you a fan of the like Disney movies growing
Oh yeah.
up?
Oh
Okay.
yeah. Big
Okay.
time.
What's your
Big
favorite
time.
one?
So you going back to the question you asked me before about my intro to comics,
Mhm.
and it was Fantastic Four, Jack Kirby.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness, The Thing, all that great stuff. And then but at the same time, like there was a parallel, it was the Disney films. And those really, and then it was Star Wars, which is like the thing that's not technically drawing in animation, but to me, I always saw it as moving illustration, like those original films, and even now, like they're moving illustration because they have such special effects and fanciness in them, and they're like illustrative. They look like paintings as much as they do just film.
Absolutely, yeah.
The sets, the decoration, the imagination. Um, so yeah, like the Disney films, huge. And then I found out they drew them by hand. I'm like, what is going on? You kidding me? You got
What was the one do you
uh,
remember the one movie, maybe it was more than one, that you thought, "Oh, that's so cool. I could do that." Was there ever that
yeah,
moment that happened?
yeah. It's weird. It's so weird because it's not a film that like people love. Like it's not. It's like a cult classic of the Disney films. It was
You say
Robin
the
Hood.
black Oh,
It
Robin
was
Hood? I thought you were gonna
Robin.
say the Black Cauldron. Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, that too. I saw that in theaters. My
I
brother
did
and I
too.
went and saw it.
Yeah, I love that movie.
And I love those books.
The
Like you
Pride
want
Drain
to take it.
Chronicles. Yeah,
Yes, the Chronicles of Prydain.
so good.
No, yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the author's name, but the five books, wonderful,
Book of
wonderful.
Three was my favorite one.
Book of Three,
I
yep.
love that book. Oh
Well,
gosh,
the
what is?
Black Cauldron too. That the witches
Well,
were
I think the
pretty.
movie ruined it
Yeah.
for me because I can never kind of see
Oh,
it the
they did
same way.
their own thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
did their. That was their own thing.
Lloyd
But
Alexander's who it was, by the way.
Lloyd, thank you, thank
Lloyd
you. And
Alexander.
the fifth book won a Newbery, I believe.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
The High
so good.
King, I think. Yeah, Taran Wanderer was probably the most like, you know, uh, like changing, young man going into,
Oh, the
adulthood.
journey
The
into the
journey,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so but yeah, all the I mean, once I saw Robin Hood, it was like Little John, I was Robin Hood. Once again, maybe it's the corgi thing, the fox, Robin Hood, the fox, or something about orange.
Maybe it's that
Yeah, there's some
canine.
going on here. Maybe I need to make a notation of that here. I look for my next project somewhere. But no, I love that film. And Little John, it was crude, it was rough. Like they did the Xerox cleanup drawings. The rough animation was so you'd see drawings that were, it was not super tight, and you could see the roughness, the energy in it, the human hands in it, and I love that. And then I found out, oh, each one's a drawing, and I just knew I wanted to be drawing every day, like. And I still am like that. I love drawing every day.
Do you ever watch things and you're like, okay, gotta get the pen and paper out, and I gotta get back on the drawing board because that
Oh
inspired me.
yeah. Oh god. Yeah, well, just and even I'll just go out in the world. Like I talked about this with young artists all the time. I'm it's funny. I play hockey, and I'm a goalie, and
That's
and
awesome.
we were
Okay.
yeah, and I play out too, and I'm a coach too on my son's team, and
Okay.
it's so much fun because that's something that's so different than the art stuff, but it keeps me active. And but there's something very artistic about hockey, that all sports, there's an artistry to it that isn't often looked at or connected, because it's like, oh, jocks, art nerds, they get like pushed, it's like they're very like separated in high school. And but I always saw like amazing potential in sports and graphic novels. And actually, I do have a hockey project in the works that I don't know what form it's going to take, but it's the same thing with the corgis. I've been drawing hockey players and myself playing hockey and my kid playing hockey, and so there could be something there in the future. But I was talking to a guy on Monday night after we were playing, and he's retired, and he's like, I want to do something totally different. He's an athlete, like this guy's in shape,
Mm-hmm.
and he's retired. He's like, I want to learn how to draw. I want to learn how to paint and draw. And he's like, tell me everything you know about sketchbook. And I'm like, how much time do you have? Jesus, you kidding me? So we sat down, and I just started in, and I said how, yeah, you get inspiration wherever you're from. Like, don't ignore your sports. Like, there's artistry in that. And I was describing, so I get inspiration from everything, Omar. Like, you say, I'll watch a movie. Yeah. I'll go down to the store to fill up the gas tank into the car, but I'll see a fire hydrant and it'll get me going. In fact, and I'm looking at the photo of the fire hydrant right
Never
before
thought
you
I'd hear
called,
that.
and I actually have it on my board right in front of me here. And this fire hydrant's the one that was right up at the corner. And I got so excited about it because it was like an unusual. Most fire hydrants are red. This was like blue and yellow. It was like chipped, and I every time I pass it, it's like, oh, that's got so much character to it. And I'm putting it in the book. So this is, So yeah, I get inspiration from everything. It's like you never know where it comes from,
Well,
but
I
don't ignore it.
love hearing that. I love hearing that it doesn't just have to come from a comic or it come from
Yeah,
a
yeah,
movie or a video game, but it comes from life.
yeah.
It comes from hockey. It comes from a fire hydrant that got you going. I never thought I'd hear those
Well,
words. That's
and to
awesome.
tie it back, Omar, to tie it back into the book,
Uh huh.
that I get that story. It's kind of like the question that was asked before about the setting. To me, when I built Corgi, like it's everything I love, not just the dogs, but we used to go hiking up in the North Blue Ridge Mountains, and I love the woods up there. That was actually the place on a hike where I came up with the idea for Corgi. And so a lot of the waterfalls, the moss covered logs that fell over, so those things are in here. I had a book going about robots, like a frog gets caught on a planet, and it's a whole bunch of these robots that keep chasing them.
Hmm.
But it wasn't a good story. It was really, to be honest, an excuse to draw a bunch of robots. Well, not to spoil the book or anything, but there's a section where there's a whole bunch of robots in here, so I
Oh,
was able to pull it in. Yeah.
that makes sense because,
Yeah.
well, yes, you're the creator, and you can be like, you know what? Yeah, robots. That sounds something I
And
can put
I
in
will
here.
say, going back to hockey, there is hockey in this as well.
That's right, there is. I didn't even
Or
think about that.
a version of early hockey, which is called broom ball way back when. So there you go. So so I'm a big believer, if you're going to write and create something, um, if everything, if whatever comes in, eventually has got to come out. Whatever you find inspiring, just listen to those little voices in your head, and they're like, I want to be told. I want to be told. So I need to do that. I need to do some meditation and find out what the next story is going to be for me. But it's a good chance, just from this conversation, some of the things I've mentioned, it's a good chance those things are going to come up in the next project, whenever
Well,
that is.
whatever it is, I will be there following, and I hope a lot of people that check
Oh,
out Corgi for the first time will be there following your work too, because it is a wonderful book, and this conversation has been so freaking pleasant. I have enjoyed
awesome.
myself, and it has just flown
Awesome.
by. I
Me
didn't realize
too.
how much we've been talking. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just a really nice
Oh,
guy. What's your favorite?
thanks,
You have a
dude.
favorite Batman comic,
Oh,
Christian?
oh, who's lifting the Stanley Cup this year? I like the Rangers. I like the Rangers, although I'm in Florida, so kind of rooting for the Panthers a little bit, but we'll see.
I
From the
had no
West, I like the Oilers. We'll see.
I
Those are
had
my
no
three teams I'm
idea
looking at.
that there was so much love for hockey in Florida. That's cool. That's
It's
cool.
pretty cool, actually. It's really cool because we stick together. It's not a ton of us, but there is a lot. I mean, it's a pretty healthy. We got a pretty good hockey community down here, which is
That's
pretty
awesome.
cool. Yeah, yeah,
So before we wrap up, I always like to ask
yeah.
my guests something. I always ask them if you were to give advice to somebody that's trying to make their own graphic novel, their own comic book,
Hmm.
or even if you could give yourself a young you advice, what advice would you give them? I think you've been giving great advice throughout here, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thanks. No, yeah, absolutely. Great question to close out with, and an important one. And it's something I heard a long time ago, and I used to always blow off because I'm like, I guess that's kind of true, but it is true, and it is getting the hardest part is getting started. The hardest part is starting,
Hmm.
or another way to say it is just showing up is half of it. You know, just showing up is winning, and that's true. If I was worried about Corgi's not perfect at all, like, but it's I showed up. I showed up and did it. I did the thing, and just being persistent and believing in yourself. So start with your idea, okay, and find that little voice. I think we all have that in us. It's telling us what to do. Maybe, and not just in what to create, but what to do in life. And if we listen to that, it's telling you got a good story in you. And don't ignore Andrew Loomis, great teacher for illustration, used to say, the most important thing you have to say as an artist is your personal experience, what you have to say personally. Your individual voice is more important than anatomy, learning how to draw this or that. Anyone could learn how to draw that. They literally taught animals, elephants to paint. Like, anyone could learn how to do this stuff. It's really, the secret is there's no secret. It's hard work. It's showing up every day with your lunchbox. Okay. But, and showing up every day and building on it and not being shy. going up to people at the comic book shows, showing your work, connecting with people in the field, getting honest feedback and listening to that feedback and saying, okay, I'm going to take that or discard. Maybe you don't listen to everything that comes back in, but listen to the common denominators. If you show the project to 5 or 10 people, and 80% of them say, oh, well, maybe do this and that, maybe that's something to really look at. So be open to criticism, but don't let it hold you back from doing your projects. Start small and believe in yourself. I'm telling you, we're living in a great age. It's never been a better time to be a comic book creator. We have a lot of great resources out there, and platforms. You could self-publish. You don't even need to print the thing. You could do it a digital comic. But show up with your lunchbox and enjoy the process every day.
I think that is some wonderful advice. I like the show up with your lunchbox. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice advice.
Awesome.
And I just want to thank you again for being here. And thank you everybody for joining in that was able to join in live. And if you have comments, leave them in the comment section later on. But yeah, this is was one of my favorite reads this year. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you.
Page, like every single page, cover to cover. I loved it. And
thank you.
even if you don't like cute little things, there's creepy things in here too.
Yeah, there's some creepy crawlies, but it's funny. They're cute creepy crawlies. Even the creepy crawlies are kind of cute.
Even creepy crawlies. Yeah, they have their own cuteness about them.
I'm so glad we were able to do this, Omar. Thank you for reaching out.
Absolutely.
We were supposed to do this a week ago.
Maybe
the fates said, no, wait a week, because now I got the book. So
I got to see your live reaction. So
and I'm glad I got to share that with you. So thank you for being here and giving me a place to talk about Corgi. Thank you.
You are more than welcome in anything you do. You're more than welcome back.
Awesome.
Seriously, you've been a great guest. Thank you, everybody, and hit that like button on the way out, please. That goes a long way for us. And check out Corgi. And if you got kiddos, check out Christian Slade's other kids' books, please. Have a wonderful day, everybody.